If you're watching this video, there's a good chance you've lived this. You fall for someone who's emotionally distant, inconsistent, unavailable in ways you can't quite name, but can always feel. You pursue them. You give everything. Your attention, your patience, your hope. And they give you just enough to keep you hooked, just enough to make you believe that if you love them better, harder, more carefully, they'll finally meet you where you are. But they never do. When it ends, and it always ends, you tell yourself it'll be different next time. You'll choose better. You'll see the signs earlier. You'll protect yourself. But the next person does the exact same thing. Different face, different story, same script. They pull you in, then pull away. They're present, then they're gone. You're left analyzing every conversation, every silence, every shift in their energy, trying to figure out what you did wrong, trying to figure out how to make them stay. This is the pattern you can't break. Not because you're naive, not because you're damaged, but because it's inherited. It didn't start with your dating life. It started long before you ever chose a partner. Each relationship feels different on the surface. This one's an artist who needs space to create. That one's emotionally guarded because of their past. This one's just overwhelmed with work right now. That one's afraid of commitment because they've been hurt before. But underneath the different stories, the script is the same. You give everything. They give crumbs, just enough to keep you hoping, never enough to feel secure. The cycle plays out like this. You pursue. There's a moment of brief connection, a late-night conversation, a vulnerable admission, a flash of intimacy that makes you think, this is it. This is who they really are. Then they withdraw, and the withdrawal doesn't just hurt. It activates something ancient in you, a panic, a desperate need to pull them back. So you pursue harder, you text more, you explain yourself, you shrink your needs, you apologize for wanting care. And the more you pursue, the more exhausted you become. Until eventually, the relationship ends. Or maybe it doesn't end. It just continues in this half-alive state, where you're technically together, but fundamentally alone. Then you meet someone new, and you do it all over again. You know this pattern in your body before you know it in your mind. The tight chest when they don't text back. The insomnia, lying awake at 2 a.m., checking your phone, replaying the last conversation, wondering what shifted. The feeling of being invisible even when you're in the same room. The loneliness inside the relationship, technically partnered, but experientially alone. You tolerate being undervalued, dismissed, deprioritized. You accept inconsistency as if it's normal. Mixed signals as if they're just how love works. And here's the strangest part. It feels calmer to you than being truly seen. When someone is consistently present, reliably responsive, emotionally available, it doesn't feel like relief. It feels wrong, boring, suspicious, like something's missing. You've learned to mistake emotional hunger for depth, distance for mystery, the ache of longing for the intensity of connection. You've become so accustomed to fighting for scraps of affection that when someone offers you a full meal, you don't know how to receive it. Your nervous system, calibrated to chaos, can't settle into ease, so you dismiss them. You tell yourself there's no chemistry. You convince yourself they're not right for you. And you go back to the ones who make you work for it, the ones who keep you guessing, the ones who feel like home. But this didn't start with your dating life. This pattern didn't begin the first time you chose someone who couldn't love you back. It began the first time you learned what love looked like. And what you learned, through no fault of your own, is that love is something you have to earn. That connection comes with conditions, that your needs are too much, that the people you love most will always be just out of reach. You didn't choose this, it chose you. Long before you ever swiped right, long before you ever said, "I love you" to someone who couldn't say it back, your nervous system was learning a language. The language of longing, the language of scarcity, the language of love as something that arrives and leaves on someone else's terms. This is not a character flaw. This is not a failure of judgment. This is an adaptation. And to understand how to break it, we need to trace it back to where it started. Your first love wasn't the person you dated in high school. Your first love was the person who was supposed to teach you what love is. The person whose attention you needed to survive. The person whose emotional availability, or lack of it, became the blueprint for every relationship that followed. This pattern didn't start when you began choosing emotionally unavailable partners. It started when you were too young to choose anything at all. When you were a child, you learned what love looks like through the people who raised you. Not through what they said, but through how they showed up. Whether they were present or absent, consistent or unpredictable, attuned to your emotions or dismissive of them. You didn't have the language to name what was happening. You just felt it, and your nervous system recorded it as truth. If your caregivers were emotionally absent, if their attention was conditional, if their love arrived and departed on their terms and never on yours, you learned that love is scarce, that connection cannot be counted on, that your needs are burdensome, that affection is something you have to earn again and again, with no guarantee it will ever be enough. You learned that the people you love most will always be just out of reach. And here's the cruelest part of it. You couldn't afford to see them as the problem. You needed them. They were your survival. So instead you turned the lens inward. You concluded that you were the problem. If I were different, you thought, if I were better, less needy, more lovable, then I would receive the love I need. Then they would stay. Then they would see me. This belief didn't just live in your mind, it became your foundation. The invisible script that runs beneath every relationship you enter. I must earn love. I am not inherently worthy of care. The way you attached to those early caregivers shaped the way you attach now. If their love was inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, never predictable, you became hypervigilant. You learned to scan constantly for signs of abandonment, to work hard to maintain closeness, to monitor their moods, anticipate their needs, adjust yourself to keep them near. You developed anxious attachment, a relentless need for reassurance, a fear that if you stop pursuing, they'll disappear. If your caregivers were emotionally unavailable or rejecting, you learned something else. You learned that needing someone is dangerous, that closeness leads to pain, so you built walls. You became fiercely self-reliant. You developed avoidant attachment. You learned to suppress your need for connection, to dismiss vulnerability, to feel suffocated when someone gets too close. And if your caregivers were both, if they were the source of comfort and the source of fear, if safety and danger came from the same hands, you learned to oscillate, to long for connection and simultaneously fear it. This is fearful-avoidant attachment, an impossible bind where intimacy feels both necessary and terrifying. These aren't just personality types, they're survival strategies, adaptations to the emotional environment you inherited. And here's what happens when you carry anxious attachment into adulthood. You are drawn, almost magnetically, to people with avoidant attachment, to the emotionally distant, the withholding, the ones who pull away the moment you move closer. This pairing isn't random. It's a perfect fit. Each wound mirrors the other. Your pursuit activates their need for space. Their withdrawal intensifies your fear of abandonment. You chase, they retreat. You intensify, they shut down. The cycle feeds itself endlessly, each person confirming the other's deepest fear. You prove to them that closeness leads to engulfment. They prove to you that your needs will always drive people away. This is the anxious avoidant trap, and it's the reason you keep choosing people who can't love you back. Because they feel familiar. Because their distance echoes the distance you knew first. Because somewhere deep inside, you're still trying to win the love you didn't receive as a child. There's a term for this: repetition compulsion. It describes the unconscious drive to recreate painful dynamics from the past, hoping this time for a different outcome. Your psyche is trying to resolve an old wound. It believes that if you can just get this person to love you, this person who resembles, psychologically and emotionally, the caregiver who couldn't meet your needs, then you'll finally prove your worthiness. You'll finally earn what was withheld from you all those years ago. But the strategy is doomed from the start because you're not choosing people at random. You're choosing people who are constitutionally incapable of giving you what you need. You're drawn to their unavailability precisely because it's familiar, because it mirrors the original wound, because your psyche recognizes the shape of the deprivation and whispers, "Here." Try again here. Each time it fails, the wound deepens. Each rejection confirms the belief that you're not enough, that love requires more effort than you can give, that if you just try harder, become smaller, need less. Maybe then, but you can't fix the past by recreating it. You can only repeat it until you understand what you're doing and why. You're not choosing unavailability because something is wrong with you. You're choosing it because it feels like home. Because home, for you, was a place where love was conditional, where connection was uncertain, where the people you needed most couldn't fully show up. And until you grieve what you didn't receive, until you stop trying to earn from strangers what your caregivers couldn't give, you'll keep returning to the same emotional terrain, different faces, same abandonment. The question isn't why you keep choosing unavailable people. The question is, what are you still trying to heal by choosing them? But there's something else happening here, something your body knows before your mind does. When you meet someone emotionally unavailable, something in you lights up. You call it chemistry. You call it intensity. You call it love. But what if it's not chemistry at all? Here's what no one tells you about the pattern. The people who feel the most right are often the most wrong for you. And the people who could actually love you well often feel completely wrong. This isn't a failure of intuition. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. When you meet someone who is emotionally available, someone who texts back consistently, who makes plans and keeps them, who asks how you're feeling and actually wants to know, who shows up when they say they will, something in you recoils, not dramatically, quietly, a subtle sense that something's missing, that it's too easy, that they're too available, that if they're this interested, there must be something wrong with them. You tell yourself there's no chemistry, no spark. You feel bored. Or worse, you feel suspicious, like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, like their consistency can't possibly be real. Meanwhile, when you meet someone who is inconsistent, who takes hours or days to respond, who's vague about their feelings, who keeps you guessing, your whole system lights up. Your heart races. Your mind fixates. You think about them constantly. You analyze every word they said, every silence, every shift in their energy. You feel alive, activated. You call this chemistry. You call this intensity. You call this connection. But it's not connection. It's anxiety. And your body can't tell the difference. When your heart is racing, when you can't stop thinking about someone, when you feel that electric pull toward them, your mind scrambles to explain what your body is feeling. And the story it tells you is, this must be love. This must be attraction. This person must be special. But your body's response to danger looks almost identical to its response to desire. Rapid heartbeat, heightened alertness, obsessive focus. The tightness in your chest when they pull away. The insomnia waiting for their text. The way you scan their words for hidden meaning, for signs they're still interested, for proof that you haven't scared them off. This is what it feels like to chase someone who's running away from you. The hyper-arousal, the unpredictability, the intermittent attention that arrives just when you're about to give up, flooding you with relief and hope before it disappears again. You've learned to interpret this activation as chemistry, as passion, as the feeling of falling in love. But what you're actually feeling is the familiar terror of uncertain attachment. The same feeling you had as a child when you couldn't predict whether your caregiver would be warm or cold, present or absent, attuned or dismissive. When someone emotionally unavailable activates your attachment system, your body responds with urgency, and you mistake that urgency for significance. So here's the question you need to start asking. Does this person make me happy? Or do they just make me activated? Because the healthiest connections don't arrive with urgency. They arrive with steadiness. They feel like breath, not adrenaline. like coming home, not chasing a moving target. And once you're in it, once you've chosen someone whose distance mirrors the distance you knew first, the dance begins. You move toward them, seeking closeness, reassurance, connection, and your movement toward them triggers something in them. A need to create space, to protect their autonomy, to retreat. So they pull back, and their pulling back doesn't just hurt. It activates your deepest fear, the fear of abandonment, the terror that you're too much, that your needs drive people away, that if you don't fix this right now, they'll disappear. So you pursue harder, you text more, you try to talk about the relationship. You explain yourself, apologize, adjust. You shrink your needs to make yourself easier to love, and the more you pursue, the more they withdraw. Because your pursuit confirms their fear that closeness leads to being trapped, controlled, consumed. This is the pursue-withdraw cycle, and it becomes the only dance you know. You pursuing, them retreating, you intensifying, them shutting down. Each of you trapped in a pattern that neither of you consciously chose, but both of you keep repeating. Because for you, pursuit feels like love. It's what you learned to do when connection felt uncertain. It's how you survived. And for them, withdrawal feels like safety. It's how they protect themselves from the vulnerability they learned was dangerous. You're not choosing each other despite the incompatibility. You're choosing each other because of it. Each wound recognizes the other. Each pattern confirms what you already believe about love. You've been chasing someone who's running away from you and calling it love. But there's more to this than just familiarity. There's something happening that makes this pattern almost impossible to break. Something that turns emotional unavailability into an addiction you didn't know you had. There's a reason you can't just walk away. A reason that consistent love from a reliable person feels flat, while a single text from someone who's been ignoring you for 3 days feels like euphoria. You're not weak. You're not foolish. You're conditioned. And the conditioning runs deeper than you think. Here's what happens when someone is unpredictable. When their affection arrives and departs on no discernible schedule, when you never know if today will bring warmth or coldness, attention or silence, your mind becomes obsessed with figuring out the pattern, with winning the reward. This is intermittent reinforcement, and it's the most powerful motivator of behavior that exists. When you know someone will always respond with kindness, your nervous system relaxes. There's no mystery, no urgency. But when you can't predict whether they'll be warm or distant, whether they'll text back in 10 minutes or 10 hours, whether tonight will bring closeness or withdrawal, your whole system stays activated, vigilant, hungry for the next hit of attention. A single moment of warmth from someone who's been cold feels more significant than consistent warmth from someone who's always present. A crumb when you're starving feels more exciting than a full meal you receive every day. The relief you feel when they finally respond, finally show up, finally give you a sliver of the intimacy you've been craving. It floods you, not with simple satisfaction, but with something closer to euphoria. And then it's gone again, and you're back to waiting, back to analyzing, back to wondering what you did wrong, what you need to do differently, how to make them stay this time. This is the hot and cold cycle. And it doesn't just hurt you, it hooks you. Because your nervous system learns to tolerate high distress for brief moments of connection. You become conditioned to accept loneliness, anxiety, and emotional starvation as the price you pay for occasional intimacy. And the intermittent nature of the reward makes you chase it harder than you would chase something reliable. This is trauma bonding, an attachment formed through cycles of pain and relief, distance and return, abandonment and reconciliation. The person who hurts you becomes the only person who can soothe you. The medicine that is simultaneously the source of poison. And because they're withholding, because they reveal so little, because their emotional distance creates gaps, your imagination rushes in to fill them. You fall in love not with who they are, but with who you imagine they could become. If they just worked on themselves, if they just healed from their past, if things calmed down at work, if they felt safer with you, if you loved them better. You invest in their potential, in the future version of the relationship that will materialize once they're ready, once they see how patient you've been, once they realize what they have in you. But that version never comes, because you're not in relationship with a real person. You're in relationship with a fantasy, and the fantasy serves a purpose. It protects you from the grief of acknowledging that what you're receiving isn't enough, that the relationship, as it actually exists, is not working, that the person in front of you is showing you clearly and consistently that they cannot meet you where you are. The fantasy lets you stay. It lets you hope. It lets you keep trying. And all the while, you're splitting them into two people, the person they could be, who is perfect and worthy of all your devotion, and the person they actually are, whose limitations you minimize, rationalize, or blame yourself for. You're not seeing them clearly. You're seeing what you need them to be, because seeing them clearly would mean facing something unbearable. You've been fighting for someone who isn't fighting for you. But here's what lives beneath all of this. Beneath the pursuit and the fantasy and the endless hope that this time will be different. Maybe you're not just choosing people who can't love you. Maybe you're choosing people who can't get close enough to see you. Because as long as they're unavailable, as long as they're distant, as long as the problem is their inability to show up, you never have to face your own fear. The fear of being fully known. The fear that if someone actually saw you, all of you, they would leave. Not because they're incapable of intimacy, but because you're not enough. The unavailable partner provides a perfect alibi. The relationship fails, and you can say it was their fault, their walls, their issues, their inability to commit. You never have to find out what would happen if someone stayed, if someone loved you without conditions, if someone saw you completely and didn't turn away. So you become an expert at longing, at yearning, at pursuing, but you're rusty. Maybe you've never even learned how to be present when someone is actually there, how to receive love when it's offered, how to let yourself be seen. The drama, the uncertainty, the endless analyzing, it keeps you busy. It keeps you distracted from the real work. The terrifying work of showing up as yourself, of asking for what you need, of staying when someone offers you the very thing you say you want. Maybe you're not just choosing people who can't love you. Maybe you're choosing people who can't get close enough to see you. And until you face that, the pattern will continue. Different faces, same distance, same longing, same loneliness disguised as love. But every time you choose someone unavailable, every time the relationship confirms that you're not enough, something inside you erodes. And that erosion makes it even harder to walk away the next time. Every time you choose someone who can't meet you, every time you stay when you should leave, every time you explain away their distance or blame yourself for their withdrawal, you're doing more than just tolerating poor treatment. You're teaching yourself that you don't deserve better. Here's what happens to your sense of self when you repeatedly pursue people who can't love you back. You begin to believe that the problem is you, not consciously, not in words you'd say out loud, but deep in the place where your worth lives. A quiet verdict forms. I'm not enough to inspire intimacy. If I were more attractive, more interesting, less needy, less complicated, then they would stay. Then they would choose me. Each time they pull away, you don't think, this person is incapable of emotional closeness. You think, what did I do wrong? What did I say? How did I push them away this time? Each failed relationship doesn't register as incompatibility. It registers as evidence, more proof of what you've always suspected about yourself, that you're too much, that your needs are burdensome, that love is something other people receive easily, but for you, it will always require more work than you know how to give. And so you stay longer than you should. You tolerate treatment you would never accept for someone you love. You shrink yourself, apologize for wanting care, make yourself smaller, in the hope that if you need less, they'll stay. But staying doesn't heal the wound, it deepens it. Because every day you accept less than you need, you're sending yourself a message. This is what I'm worth. This is all I deserve. And somewhere along the way, you stopped asking what you need from the relationship. You started asking what they need from you. You became the one who does the emotional labor, who initiates the difficult conversations, who remembers the details, who pursues connection when they withdraw, who adjusts, accommodates, explains, apologizes, who holds the relationship together through sheer force of will. This is overfunctioning, and it feels like love. It feels like devotion, like proof of how much you care. But it's not love. It's an old survival strategy. The one you learned as a child when you realized that if you could just anticipate their needs, manage their moods, make yourself useful enough, maybe they would stay. Maybe they would see you. You learned to derive your worth from caretaking, from being the one who gives more than they receive, from staying even when staying costs you everything. And here's the cruel irony. The more you overfunction, the more they underfunction. The more you pursue, the more they retreat. The more you give, the less they're required to show up. You've created a dynamic where your endless effort enables their continued unavailability. You're not in partnership, you're in a parent-child relationship, and you're exhausted. But there's something else happening here, something harder to see. You say you want intimacy, you say you want someone who shows up, but part of you, the part that learned emotional exposure is dangerous, is terrified of being truly known. So you stay busy pursuing someone who can't get close. You focus on their walls, their limitations, their inability to meet you. And you never have to face your own. You've become comfortable with distance, with working for love, with the familiar ache of wanting someone who can't fully see you, because being fully seen would require something you're not sure you can do. Showing up as yourself, with your needs, your desires, your full, unedited self, and risking that it still won't be enough. So you protect yourself, not from them, from the truth. You minimize. It's not that bad, they're just stressed right now. It'll get better when things calm down. You rationalize. They had a difficult childhood. They don't know how to express feelings. They're doing the best they can. You deny. They're not distant. They just need space. That's healthy. And most powerfully, you blame yourself. If I were less needy, if I didn't bring up the relationship so much, if I just gave them time? Self-blame feels terrible, but it serves a purpose, because if you're the problem, then there's hope. You can work on yourself. You can try harder. You can become the version of yourself that finally earns their love. But if the problem is them, if they're simply incapable of the intimacy you need, if their limitations are not about you at all, then there's nothing you can do except leave. And leaving would mean facing the grief. The grief of what you wanted this relationship to be. The grief of how much you've given for so little in return. The grief of acknowledging that the person you love cannot love you back the way you need. So you stay. You protect the relationship from reality. You protect yourself from the unbearable truth that you've been fighting for someone who isn't fighting for you. And in doing so, you protect yourself from freedom, because freedom would require you to stop, to walk away from the familiar pain, to face the terrifying possibility that there's another way to love and be loved, a way that doesn't require you to earn it. But before we can talk about that other way, we need to understand where else this pattern lives, because it's not just in your thoughts, it's in your body. You know this pattern in your body before you know it in your mind. The tight chest when they don't text back. The way your shoulders creep toward your ears when you sense them pulling away. The insomnia at 2 a.m., phone in hand, scrolling back through old messages, looking for the moment everything shifted. The shallow breathing, the clenched jaw, the knot in your stomach that never fully unwinds. This pattern doesn't just live in your thoughts, it lives in your tissues. In the chronic tension you've stopped noticing because it's been there so long. In the way your whole body leans forward in pursuit, physically reaching for connection, even when no one's there. In the way you brace against the next rejection before it arrives, muscles already tight, breath already held. Your body learned long ago to stay vigilant, to scan for danger, to prepare for abandonment. And that preparation never stops, even when you're alone, even when you're safe. Even in the quiet moments, your nervous system is running the same program. They're going to leave. You need to fix this. You're not doing enough. This is the somatic imprint of unavailability, and it guides you toward partners before you consciously choose them. You meet someone, and before a single word is exchanged, your body is already reading them, already sensing whether they feel familiar, whether the shape of their distance matches the shape of the distance you know. And when it does, something in you relaxes, not into ease, but into recognition. This is what love feels like. Your body becomes an internal compass, calibrated not to your well-being, but to your history. It pulls you towards what's known, and what's known is scarcity, uncertainty, the ache of wanting someone who can't fully arrive. And everywhere you look, the culture you grew up in confirms it. Every movie where the protagonist fights for someone who doesn't want them and wins. Every song about waiting, yearning, proving your devotion through persistence. Every romantic narrative that glorifies the chase, that positions suffering as evidence of depth, that teaches you to measure love by how much it hurts. You learned that if it comes easily, it's not real. That if you're not fighting for it, it's not worth having. That passion and pain are synonymous. That the person who makes you work hardest for their attention must be the most valuable. The culture told you that suffering proves love, that patience in the face of neglect is noble, that the tragic lover pining for someone who won't return their devotion is romantic. But suffering doesn't prove love. Suffering only proves suffering. And yet the narratives persist. They shape what you expect, what you tolerate, what you mistake for chemistry. They make it harder to recognize emotional unavailability as a problem because the struggle itself feels like proof that this must be important, that this must mean something. You've been conditioned by your history, by your body, by the stories you were told, to believe that love should hurt, that if you're not anxious, you're not in love, that if someone is too available, too consistent, too present, they must not be worth having. And so you return again and again to the partners who confirm what you already believe, who feel familiar in their distance, who keep you reaching, waiting, hoping. Your body knows this dance. It remembers every step. It will guide you back to the same floor with a different partner playing the same song. Unless you learn to hear what your body is actually telling you, unless you learn to distinguish between the pull of familiarity and the pull of genuine care. Because here's what changes everything. You can learn a different way. Not by ignoring what your body knows, but by teaching it something new. By showing it, slowly and with great patience, that safety doesn't have to feel wrong. That steadiness isn't boring. That love doesn't require suffering to be real. Breaking this pattern doesn't begin with finding the right person. It begins with learning to recognize the wrong ones before your heart gets involved. Before the fantasy takes hold, before you've invested months or years trying to turn emotional unavailability into love. There are patterns you can learn to see, not in hindsight, but in real time. Early, before the attachment deepens. Watch how someone handles emotional conversations. Do they lean in or pull away? Do they deflect with humor every time something real surfaces? Do they turn every vulnerable moment into a joke, every difficult feeling into something to fix or dismiss? This is the jester, the person who uses lightness as armor, who claims to be positive, easygoing, spontaneous, but who cannot sit with anything heavy, who trivializes what matters to you, who makes you feel like your feelings are too serious, too intense, too much. Watch whether someone can receive care or only give it. Do they listen when you share something difficult, or do they immediately jump to advice, solutions, fixes? Do they ask questions about your inner world, or do they keep the focus on theirs? This is the counselor, the person who's always helping, always supporting, always available for everyone except themselves, who never lets you see their struggles, who maintains control by staying in the helper role, who cannot let themselves need you. Watch what someone does with distress, theirs or yours. Do they stay present, or do they leap into action? Do they allow space for feelings to exist, or do they immediately try to solve, fix, change what's uncomfortable? This is the fixer, The person who's terrified of their own emotions and cannot tolerate yours, who equates love with solving problems, who would rather do something, anything, than sit with you in what's unresolved. And beyond the types, there are the patterns, the vagueness about the future, the difficulty committing to plans more than a few days ahead. The inconsistency, warm one day, cold the next, with no explanation for the shift. The way conversations stay on the surface, the defensiveness when you name what you're feeling. The long silences between texts, the way you're always the one initiating. These are not quirks, these are signs. And if you've been choosing unavailable partners for years, you've learned to explain them away, to give them the benefit of the doubt, to tell yourself it's too early to expect consistency, or they're just stressed, or this is how they show love. But here's what you need to understand. The initial spark you feel with someone, the electricity, the obsession, the sense that this person is different, is often not chemistry. It's recognition. Your nervous system recognizing the familiar shape of unavailability, the familiar distance, the familiar withholding. If you have a history of choosing people who can't meet you, the absence of that spark may actually indicate health. It may mean this person doesn't activate your attachment wounds, that their presence allows your nervous system to settle instead of activating it into vigilance. So the question isn't, do I feel chemistry? The question is, do I feel safe? Do I feel seen? Do I feel like I can be myself without performing? And this is where it gets hard, because safe, at first, might feel boring. It might feel like something's missing. Your body, conditioned to interpret anxiety as attraction, might tell you this person isn't exciting enough, not intense enough, not worth pursuing. This is the discomfort of unfamiliarity, and you have to learn to tolerate it. You have to give people a chance who don't immediately activate you, who text back consistently, who make plans and keep them, who ask how you're feeling and actually want to know, who don't keep you guessing, who show up. These people might not feel thrilling at first, but thrilling for you has always meant anxious. And you've been mistaking anxiety for love for so long that calm feels like apathy. Breaking the pattern requires expanding your aperture, deliberately choosing to date people you wouldn't normally be drawn to. Not because they're settling, but because your usual type has been leading you to the same pain, and it's time to try something different. It requires establishing boundaries, not walls, but clear lines about what you will and will not accept. What are your non-negotiables? What are the red flags that in the past you've explained away? Write them down, and this time, when you see them, walk away. Early, before your heart convinces you to stay. But the deepest work isn't about changing who you choose. It's about changing who you are to yourself. Because you've been looking for someone to finally see you, choose you, prove that you're worthy of consistent love. But the person you're looking for isn't out there. It's the one you're becoming for yourself. This is secure internal attachment. The capacity to be present to your own feelings. To comfort yourself when you're distressed. To validate your own experience without needing external confirmation. To know deeply that your needs are legitimate and your worth is not contingent on someone else's ability to meet you. It means speaking to yourself the way you wish your caregivers had spoken to you. With kindness instead of criticism. With understanding instead of judgment. With the recognition that you're doing your best with the tools you were given. It means building relationships with people who model secure attachment, who show you through their presence that love doesn't have to be a battle. That connection can be steady, that you can ask for what you need without being too much. It means practicing receiving, because if you've spent years pursuing unavailable people, your capacity to let love in has atrophied. You're so used to chasing that when someone offers care freely, you don't know how to take it. You deflect, you minimize, you wait for the catch. Receiving is a skill, and it requires letting yourself be seen, letting yourself need, letting yourself believe that care offered without conditions is real. The most compassionate people, it turns out, have boundaries of steel. They know what they will and won't accept. They can love deeply without losing themselves. They can be vulnerable without abandoning their own needs. This is what you're building toward, not just better partner selection, but a different relationship with yourself. One where your worth is not up for debate. Where love doesn't require suffering to be real. Where you finally put down the weight you've been carrying and let yourself rest. And when you do this work, when you stop chasing unavailability and start building security within yourself, something shifts. When you do this work, when you stop trying to earn love from people who can't give it, when you start building a different relationship with yourself, something begins to change. Not all at once. Not in a single moment of clarity where everything suddenly makes sense and the pattern dissolves. This isn't that kind of transformation, but gradually, almost imperceptibly at first, the pull toward unavailable partners loosens its grip. You meet someone who keeps you guessing, who's inconsistent, who makes you work for every scrap of attention. And instead of feeling activated, you feel tired. The drama that once registered as passion now feels like what it actually is: exhaustion. The uncertainty that you used to mistake for chemistry now just feels like instability, like something you no longer have the energy to navigate. And the person who texts back when they say they will, who makes plans and keeps them, who asks how you're feeling and actually listens, they don't feel boring anymore. They feel like relief, like finally putting down a weight you didn't realize you'd been carrying for so long. This is the shift, not from intensity to numbness, but from one kind of intensity to another. Because what becomes possible isn't a relationship without challenges. It's a relationship without the constant underlying terror of abandonment, without the hypervigilance, without the endless analysis of whether you're too much or not enough, without the chronic bracing against the next withdrawal. What becomes possible is a partnership where both people actually show up, where ruptures happen, because they always do, but repair is possible, where your needs aren't a burden but a natural part of intimacy, where you don't have to earn care, where someone's presence doesn't feel conditional. This is a different kind of intensity, not the intensity of anxiety, not the adrenaline of pursuit, but the intensity of being truly seen, the depth that comes from genuine vulnerability, the profound intimacy that's only possible when both people are actually present. It's the intensity of someone staying through your difficult moments instead of disappearing, of conflict that leads to deeper understanding instead of distance, of love that feels less like a fever and more like a home. This is the most unfamiliar territory of all, and it requires courage to enter. Courage to trust that what awaits on the other side of the pattern isn't emptiness, but fullness, not boredom, but peace, not the absence of love, but its actual presence. Breaking this pattern is neither quick nor linear. There will be setbacks, moments when the old pull toward unavailability feels overwhelming. Relationships that replay familiar dynamics before you recognize what's happening. This is not failure. This is the nature of deeply encoded patterns. They don't dissolve because you understand them. They loosen slowly through repeated practice of choosing differently, through building evidence that another way is possible. But as awareness deepens, as your body learns to settle in the presence of genuine availability, as self-worth becomes less contingent on earning love from those who cannot give it, something shifts. You begin to recognize that the familiar ache you've been calling love is actually longing, and you deserve more than longing. You deserve presence. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve someone who doesn't make you fight for basic care. The work is hard. The grief is real. Letting go of the fantasy, accepting what wasn't given, choosing to stop repeating what was modeled, none of this is easy. But the life on the other side is worth every difficult moment. The life where you're not constantly bracing for abandonment, where you can finally rest in someone's care, where love doesn't require suffering to feel real. You didn't choose this pattern, but you can choose to break it, not by finding the perfect partner, but by becoming a different kind of partner to yourself, by building the secure attachment within that you've been searching for outside. And when you do, everything changes. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with others so they can benefit from this message. And don't forget to leave a comment below, sharing your thoughts, reflections, and experiences. Thanks again for watching and for joining me. Take care, and see you soon.